All right, we are live on the Facebook, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Jonesy and Brown. My name is John Brown. By my side is my partner, my sidekick. Well, all right, no, he's not. See, I mean, he's like he's first. So
I wasn't gonna say nothing.
Yeah, I will talk real quick. Shout out to my man Shalico because he's a guy I went to college with. He watched the podcast for like the first time, like maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and the first thing he hits me up is, "Who the hell is Mike Jones and why is his name first? Darn it, it should be Brown. It should." I'm like, dude, it just flows like that. I like the way it sounded. It was like Jonesy and Brown. He was like, no, man, it should be Brown and Jonesy. And maybe, but like we already paid for the logo, so it is what it is, man. I got money to be changing things like that. But ladies and gentlemen, Mike Jones also here, the soon to be married man. This man's got like 2 months left. It's almost the big day is almost here. Mr. Jovan Alford from DK Nation, from Total Sports Live, from Fox Sports The Gambler. The man's all over the place, and he's about to get married. Jovan Alford, welcome to the show. Welcome back, my brother.
Hey, appreciate y'all having me on. I'm glad to be back on. I think almost the last time. Last time had to be during the season, I think.
Yeah, during the season. Yeah,
where things are going completely wrong. And completely bad and just downhill. And
since then, since we had that show, we had Jovan on for the show, and it pretty much turned into a Eagles gripe session where we just sat and complained about the Eagles. Since then, the coach that we complained about got fired. The quarterback that we complained about got traded.
Mm-hmm.
And the GM that we complained about replaced all of those guys. So only time will tell what the job that he has done. But we are here. It's the NFL draft, round 1 in the books. I want to start with the both of you. Pretty much your thoughts. Did it go as planned? Jovan, I know you had a mock draft. You put out a mock draft right before the draft started, maybe a day or two before the draft started. As it went, were the surprises? Did it go as you thought it would? Tell me your thoughts.
I mean, I didn't. For the most part, it's weird to say for the most part. Then for the entire draft, I actually thought I didn't have really a lot of gripes what a lot of teams does, which is surprising because usually there's like every draft we all watch. There's always like this, like there's like 3 or 4 or 5 picks where you're sitting there just like, what? Like, what is this team thinking? Like, why would you do such a thing?
The old Mitchell Trubisky.
Exactly. And it was supposed to be Mac Jones at number 3, but thankfully that didn't happen. But for the Eagles, I would say I would say that it went the plan because obviously you were thinking when they moved down from 6 to 12, you're thinking, all right, they're going to possibly get one of the wide receivers, and maybe they'll have Parsons there, which I know you really wanted, and a couple of maybe one or both of the cornerbacks. But who knew that the Carolina Panthers were going to take the cornerback in J.C. Horn, which I think kind of threw everybody for the loop, and then Denver takes Patrick Surtain, which was in retrospect a smart move, maybe, but you might need a quarterback. So then when you get to when you get down to what we're at 10 at that point, you're thinking, okay, what is about to happen? What's about to take place? Who's about to do what? Cowboys straight back, Eagles come up, and you're like, this only has to be for one player only. You're not going to move back. You're not going to move or anything if it's from Micah Parsons. Like, you're fine because you're probably going to get him because we see what the Giants ultimately did when they moved back. So for them, getting Devonta Smith at number 10, I think was the best case scenario. I think if you're an Eagles fan, you're probably thankful that Howie Roseman didn't screw it up because there was like this major possibility where you're just seeing like trade rumors and stuff. You're like, the Eagles are really in love with Kwity Paye from Michigan. And you're just like, no, we can't do another edge rusher from Michigan, even though Brandon Graham panned out perfectly fine. But you didn't want to.
After a couple of years, that turned out to be an all right pick. But we were, there was some time.
It looked kind of scary.
There were a couple of seasons when you were looking at Brandon Graham and you were like,
yeah, the same reaction y'all got.
I gotta call a timeout. Knowing what you know about Brandon Graham right now, doing it all over again, you think he's worth a first round pick?
Here's the problem. I feel like just in the question that you asked, the way that you asked, knowing what we know now.
Do you think he's worth a first round pick?
I think
because somebody just said the pick panned out, so that means he was worth the pick.
Yeah, I think when you look at,
would you draft Brandon Graham in the first round, knowing you're going to get what you got out of him?
Well, knowing that there'd be a couple of seasons when I'm sitting there like, I don't know.
That's what you got out of him, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I think you got to take it all, good and bad.
With the question that you asked, then my answer would be yes. Yes, then I would, because of, I mean, now, hindsight is 20/20. There would have been a couple of times, had you had asked me that question, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I'd have been like, no, they're crazy. This dude was a bust. But I think honestly, when you look at, and for us, where we have been so critical of the front office and how they've drafted, you look at Brandon Graham as he's the example a lot of people would use for being patient. Now, the patience is worn thin with
because let's talk about this. You talk about the value of a first round pick. You just said there were 4, 5, 6 years where you were like,
No, I said 4, 5, 6 years ago. I was, I was like that. There might have been about 2. Man,
how many years has he been in the league?
He's like a seasoned vet now. Brandon Graham in NFL years, Brandon Graham is like 70 years old. But because I don't have a youngster anymore. No, he's not a youngster anymore. And honestly, I think now, like to the question that you asked, would I spend a first round draft pick on him now? I'm not drafting a 32-year-old dude, but
you use a first round pick, you get his whole career.
Get his whole career, yes.
The good, the bad, all of it.
Yes, the good, yes. Because in the end, I think he played well enough now. Hindsight being 20/20, retro of his whole career. I think the good outweighed the bad. And now I'm sitting here now, and it's easy for me to say now in 2021 to say, "Hey, man, Brandon Graham."
I'm not saying the good didn't outweigh the bad. What I'm asking is, did the good outweigh the bad enough to be first round pick worthy?
Yes.
Because
if you're asking me for my opinion, yes.
A second, third round pick, I expect guys to eventually develop into starters after 3, 4 years in the league, which is what I got out of Brandon Graham.
Would you consider Brandon Graham a difference maker?
Not particularly. He's been a difference maker in some games.
All right,
but at what point, he's had some hot stretches. Like a couple seasons ago, last season maybe, he started out the year on a tear, and then by the end of the year, he didn't have a sack the last 6, 7 games or something.
Look, that's sorry.
Jovan, you look like you're itching to say something over there.
Oh no, I'm just listening to the conversation. I'm chilling.
All right, look. First of all, that's a conversation for another. We could have the retrospect on Brandon Graham. We brought Jovan Alford in here to talk about the 2021 NFL draft. You said not a lot of surprises. 3 quarterbacks off the list first. You had Trevor Lawrence, you had Zach Wilson, you had Trey Lance. Not even Trey Lance was a surprise to you. Is that what you're saying?
Trey Lance is not my cup of tea, just based off of the small sample size that we have of him. But it wasn't a surprise to see him go where he went, because obviously it's going to be between him and Mac Jones. But I never thought it was going to be Mac Jones, because Mac Jones is basically what you got in Jimmy Garoppolo, and that doesn't take you to that next level. You need a quarterback with the mobility, with the athleticism, to make that play action game a little bit more believable with a much better arm, then you got to standstill guys. They can't really bring that different dynamic to their offense. So that honestly didn't surprise me either at all.
Okay.
What did you think about Justin Fields? Because he was a guy, rather than Mac Jones, I thought San Francisco might have been considering 3.
I honestly, that's where I wanted them. That's where I wanted them to go, because you see what he was able to do with the weapons that he has, and we already know the wide receivers that came out of Ohio State the last few years, and just this season what he's had. And then you take him and his athleticism and his ability to move on the run, to be that +1 in the run game, and you already know they got Debo, they got Brandon Ayuk, they got a running game. I mean, it was almost like a tailor-made fit, for them. So I thought that would have been perfect. But to ultimately see him, thankfully he didn't slide too far, because that's what my fear was, that he was going to start sliding down the board.
When I saw him available at 10, my mind started spinning.
Quarterback factory started going through your mind, like,
exactly,
going to do it.
No, but you raise a good point, because you and I kind of talked about it in our preparation for the draft. The 2 sports minds that I go to during the week when I need to vent, when I have a question, are the 2 men on this podcast with me today. And we talked about the draft. We talked about Howie going to Howie. And was Howie going to find a way to somehow screw up this draft? And I feel like in the preparation, the conversations that we have had about the draft, we talked about how high the Eagles were picking. When it started out, they were 6th. They moved down to 12th. They moved back up to 10th. And the general consensus is, picking that high, you're pretty much, chances are you're going to get a guy who will be a difference maker. And especially at 6, you move down to 12, you might have to do some digging. There's a chance you might screw up, but there's still, chances are still high. 10, you're a little bit better than 12. But for the most part, you're going to get a guy who will be a difference maker. And I've talked to you and I've said, I need the person they get at the top of this draft to be a difference maker, a day 1 starter. I don't want no projects. I don't want somebody who's going to come in and play behind somebody who's already here. I need a guy that's going to be on week 1. When you announce the starters, their name is going to be called. And that's what they got. Yep. But the fact of the matter is, you look at this draft history. Devonta Smith is easily the best first round draft pick they've made since Carson Wentz. You look at that history, but that being said, they've had first round picks. There was a chance in the back of your mind. You're like, Howie's going to screw this up. Howie's going to Howie. They're going to pick some guy, and I know the first thing I'm going to do is text Mike and text Jovan, and the first thing I'm going to say is, who?
I mean, I told you guys before the draft that I was scared Howie was going to Howie, I believe is how I put it. Yeah.
I'm sitting up here with my tablet in my hand. Tablet is right here in my hand, and I got Emory Hunt's football game plan draft guide, and I just knew that I was just going to have to be scouring through the 700 pages to find whoever this guy was that they drafted. There was a chance that was going to happen. There was a chance there was going to be some stretch. Like they're going to come in here and they're going to pick the next Fletcher Cox, which is cool. All right, I understand, but you still got Fletcher Cox. Mm-hmm. Oh, they're going to come in and they're going to draft. They're going to draft the next Jason, the next Jason Kelsey, which is cool. But they got a Jason. I need a day 1 starter. I need somebody who's there. I need somebody who can come in and start. So, that being said, they got that guy, but there was, in the back of your mind, like, how he's going to screw this up.
Yeah. Yeah, I was nervous. I don't know. But Jovan, I know we got you for a limited amount of time today. So before we get out of here, let me go here with you. I said to JB before that when Wentz was traded, that I felt like that almost gave Howie a little bit extra wiggle room as far as this, like they're officially in a rebuild, so this is almost a throwaway year as far as wins and losses in the record. So where it almost like where people worry about is the GM on the hot seat, Howie's seat got cooler because of the way this offseason went. And so my real concern was I don't want to see more of Howie outsmarting himself this or this offseason. How I know after the draft I've said I felt okay with it. It's a whole I feel all right with how this offseason went. How do you see the direction the Eagles are going at this point?
I think it's weird. Like they're not doing like what everybody like a rebuild like we see a lot of times in sports where they just tear it all up. They're getting rid of everybody, all the veterans, like get them out the door, kick them out, get whatever you can in return for them. They're doing a halfway partial rebuild, but also trying to replenish it with talent and almost trying to keep up with the times of the NFL. Like you saw that kind of in last year's draft where they were getting a bunch of speed guys at certain positions because speed was the thing. They're going to get speed at wide receiver. They're going to get speed at linebacker with Davion Taylor. They're going to get, a guy in Kayvon Wallace. So you saw them kind of do that. Now it's time. Now you see them get Devonta Smith, who they didn't like you said, he didn't outsmart themselves. I forgot what was the quote that Roseman said. It was something to the effect of just how they just didn't outsmart themselves. And he was like,
he made mention of the fact that they reached on picks before, like almost leaning on the analytics and stuff too much.
Right. And that's a breath of fresh air to hear. It's like, oh, so now you get it. Like the light bulb kind of goes off. Like, and it happens in sports all the time. You guys see it in sports. It happens in baseball, basketball, football. Everybody leans on the analytics and the numbers, because the analytics say to do this, the analytics say to do that. But you gotta look at the film. You gotta look at what these guys do. Like you gotta look at the skills they bring to the table, and if they're interchangeable and can add to it, then they'll be fine. So I don't think. And then when we also consider what this division is right now, like you can't even say like they're even rebuilding because they could literally get on a hot streak and make a run. You just don't know. We don't know what Sirianni's going to bring to the table. It's a lot of unknowns, but I think it's not like a bad unknown. Like
we have no idea what Hurts will look like in year 2 with an actual NFL offseason.
Right. So he could be better. Sirianni can pull a complete 180 that Doug didn't do, where Doug didn't really want to run the ball. He says, hey, we're going to give Miles Sanders 18 to 20 carries a game. Like he's going to be a feature of your offense. And, Jalen Reagor maybe has a breakout year because he's not the number 1 guy anymore. He's the number 2. So I think it's a weird entry with this team of what we might see. And I think whatever happens, the rest of the draft will kind of give us more of a direction on both sides, what they want to do.
Yeah. To Jonesy's point, I feel like Howie did enough to earn himself some leeway to say, hey, like I think there were a lot of people who were ready to pounce on him and ready to just give him all the smoke. But it's like, okay,
they were in the draft waiting.
Yeah, people were poised to do that, and I think honestly, initially, when you see draft day trade with the Cowboys, people were that just primed the pump a little bit. People were like, oh, like what are you doing?
He got fleeced. And the automatic thinking.
And I think honestly that's one of those things, and it's something like Jonesy, you and I talk about, where you see what something might feel like on the surface. On the surface, you're saying a draft day trade with the Cowboys, but in essence, when you look at the entire the entire circle of work, they trade down. They gain an extra pick by trading down. They then use that pick to trade back up when they see the guy that they want is there.
Right.
And it's, the Cowboys. I understand it's the Cowboys, but they just a facilitator to get the guy that they wanted.
Exactly.
And get them from another division rival.
There you go. Because it all, because then you look at who the Giants took later, and that told you what they were looking for and who they were targeting. Exactly. And the Eagles fans would have been more sick because now it's like Cowboys get CeeDee Lamb, and now you got to face the Giants, who has Devonta Smith.
And honestly, I feel like just the way the draft had played out, you talked about the cornerbacks that they had their eye on going before their pick. And I think if you trade down from 6, then you miss out on the DBs that were at the top of the draft. And then you see, following the year that Dallas gets CeeDee Lamb and the Giants get Devonta Smith. And you don't, on the first day of the draft, you don't get better at DB.
Yeah.
You talk about, once again, Howie Roseman getting all the smoke. But now they have it's like, I like this nucleus that they seem to be filled. You got Jalen Hurts, and it's like, look, man, he's the guy. At some point in time, if you're a fan of a team, you have to accept that this is the guy that's on the team, and you want to see where he at. And like, I was a Carson Wentz guy, but you know what? At some point in time, it's like, yes, I was a Carson Wentz guy, but I'm still a Philadelphia Eagles guy. So I need to see this Jalen. I need to see him play.
You invested a second-round pick in him.
Yep.
At least give him the year. Get yourself out from under this cap mess you were in going into the offseason. And then with all the assets you have next year, if need be, then you address the quarterback position.
As much as I hate the phrase "we need to see what we have," that's where we are with Jalen Hurts.
And honestly,
you got a running back, and you got him a running back. Now he's got a wide receiver. Now it's trying to keep him upright.
I'll be completely honest. For me, if I'm looking to rebuild a team, quarterback is the last piece I want to put in, not the first one.
Yep.
No, you're right.
So let's go ahead and see what Jalen Hurts can do in the meantime.
Okay. Jovan, real quick, I think probably one of the biggest knocks on Devonta Smith is his size. People saying he's 6'1". He's listed as 6'1". They say 175 pounds. I've heard 160. But how can I know he's a speed guy. They call him the Slim Reaper. How concerned are you about his size? How big of a concern are you about his size?
I'm not concerned because we've seen players at his size do work. I mean, we saw Deshaun Jackson pretty much do work. Deshaun didn't, for how small Deshaun was, he didn't really have no crazy injuries except like muscle injuries, like hamstrings, things like that. That was the only thing. He didn't I don't think he broken like an ankle or like have something like really serious
until later in his career.
Right, exactly. But early in his career, he was pretty much healthy. So I'm not really worried about his size because I look at another wide receiver that a lot of people on draft Twitter talks about, and that's Tutu Atwell. He's like 5'9", like 140 something pounds soaking wet, 150 soaking wet. So I mean, if Devonta Smith's size is concerned, then I'm scared for the team that takes Tutu Atwell, because then they're gonna be like, the dude's like 150, 149, like. What can you do? But I'm not concerned about it. I mean, look at the conference he plays. Look at the conference he plays in. He plays in SEC. That's a grown man's conference. That's NFL 2.0.
Exact words I was about to use. It's grown men playing defense in the SEC.
Okay.
And they tried to jam him and get physical all the time. So I expect Devonta Smith to be able to be productive. He's got quick feet, good agility, good explosiveness, good hands. He runs great routes. At this early of an age, if he's running routes this as well as he does already, I expect him to do nothing but get better. So I'm not worried about Devonta Smith at all.
There you have it. There you have. I mean, right there, both of you said exactly what I was thinking. because honestly, usually when you see a player that small, and you see, like, you look at his highlights. Like, it's one thing, you look at the games, you look at his highlights, and you see the type of moves he's able, the way he's able to get open, the separation that he's able to get. And usually the talk is, well, he's not going up against NFL type defensive backs. Those aren't NFL types cornerbacks. Those aren't NFL type safeties. Mm-hmm. Like when you play in the SEC, that's about as close as you're gonna get in college.
Yeah,
you're talking about a guy who's going against LSU, who's going against the Georgias, who's teams going against the Auburns, all those teams, every week. Every
week in the SEC, his team has NFL defenders.
And you're talking about a senior, and I think that's also something that that will play into it. You're talking about a senior. You're talking about somebody who's played in those trenches for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So you get a player who's played at that level in that type of conference. You're talking about you didn't draft a player, you didn't draft a college player, you drafted a free agent. That's about basically. Basically that's a free agent. That's somebody who's played in a pro scheme against pro DBs for 4 years. So at this point in time, you expect him, unless Sirianni just comes in, unless Sirianni comes in and channels his inner Chip Kelly and just brings in a style that just befuddles everybody, he should be able to come in and get this. He should be able to pick this up. This shouldn't be a problem.
You see the look on my face, JB?
I do.
Why do I have this look on my face?
I know why you had to look, because I said that name.
Thank you.
And I will try not to say it again. I'm sorry. And I feel bad because, we're doing a show on a Friday. So I'm sending you into the weekend with a memory of that man. And I'm sorry. I apologize. But I was hoping that the point that I made was good enough to warrant a reference to that man. But I take it it's not.
I'm gonna do my best to forget about it.
All right.
It never happened.
I understand. I completely understand. All right. So before we let Jovan go, real quick. So far, you look at what you look at the draft. You give the Eagles an A for the Freeman pick. That's Freeman. I don't know why I want to keep calling him Devonta Freeman. Devon. Look, it wouldn't be an Eagles first round pick if I wasn't getting his name wrong. You can go through all of these. You can go through all these podcasts. Every Eagles, every NFL draft podcast I've done with these two other gentlemen, and you'll hear me getting somebody's name wrong. But anyway, you like the Smith pick, Micah Parsons to Dallas, which just adds to the long line. Dallas is watching Sean Lee leave. They're bringing in Micah Parsons to just force me to hate another Penn State guy, and I don't want to, which will make me hate the Dallas Cowboys even more, because now I love Micah Parsons at Penn State. I will now hate Micah Parsons in Dallas. What do you think of that pick? They needed DBs. They got a middle linebacker.
I mean, they're in the situation taking best player available. There's no Surtain, there's no Horn there. You didn't need a wide receiver. Kyle Pitts wasn't there. So you take your linebacker because your linebacking core really is suspect. People don't want to say it. It's suspect. Jalen Smith hasn't really turned out to be that guy. LVE was hurt. And then Sean Lee is now gone. So you needed somebody there. And hopefully you would think that they would do the right thing and get some DBs in the next round, because they were, let's just say, people criticize the Eagles secondary when the Cowboys were just as worse and they had starters on the field. So
I hear you. Giants get Kadarius Toney, inside linebacker. What do you think of that?
No, Kadarius Toney, I thought that was again they were targeting Devonta Smith, so they go with a guy and Toney he's a playmaker. You know, a lot of people talk about Kyle Pitts and the way he played last season. Toney played a big part in that Florida offense, so he's a guy where you just need to get the ball in his hands and he'll make plays out in the open field. He's explosive, you know, yards after the catch, you know, do those things and you'll be good. So another smart pick by Gettleman for moving back.
Mm-hmm. All right, Washington football team gets Davis from the linebacker from Kentucky.
Confusion, a little surprising of a pick just because I thought there were better linebackers possibly that they could have waited, that they could have took or even waited on. A lot of people thought that they probably could have addressed the offensive line because there were some tackles out there like Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. Davis was a guy that I think a lot of people on draft Twitter started to talk about like as the week started leading up to because of his like insane pro day and his speed. And it was just like, we need him. They need, you know, somebody's going to take him just because of his athleticism and his abilities. Mm-hmm. So they take him to add to that defense, which is already pretty solid. Now, how does Washington kind of replenish that secondary, especially at cornerback with them losing Ronald Darby? That's going to be, you know, the question for him.
All right. Outside of the NFC East, Mac Jones goes to New England.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about, you know, touched on it earlier. One of your thoughts, you got Mac Jones coming in. You still have Cam Newton. In your opinion, does Mac Jones push Cam Newton out this year? Does he sit, or does he come in and he takes a firm grip of the clipboard?
Clipboard. I think clipboard for right now. I think Belichick kind of owes it to Cam and vice versa to at least see this out for at least half of the season with a full off season. With everything, you know, with better weapons, because let's be real, Cam didn't have the greatest of weapons at wide receiver last season. He was making it work with Jacoby Myers and Demir Byrd. So he got better weapons. He got actually two solid tight ends, Hunter Henry and Johnny Smith. So got to give him at least half the season. Now, if things fall off the side of the cliff by the bye week or by week 8 or 9, then Mac Jones will probably be it.
All right, real quick, 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Of those 5, who do you see having the biggest impact?
Out of the 5, that's a great question. Having the biggest impact. I know everybody's going to say Trevor Lawrence, but I need to see what Urban Meyer does with Jacksonville first, and we'll see how long he actually stays there. Number 2, I'm gonna, and this might. Like obviously this might be the cliche answer to go with, but I'm gonna say Justin Fields. I think he's in a situation where he could play outside of Trevor Lawrence, I think he's in a situation where he can absolutely play right away because we know Chicago said they brought in Andy Dalton, and Andy Dalton is supposed to be, you know, the QB1 starting quarterback for this squad, but I don't necessarily see that. And if Dalton falls off the side of the cliff, which is definitely possibly could happen, he'll be starting. I mean, we saw how good and bad, you know, Dalton was last season. So you hope that Chicago righted their wrongs with the Mitch Trubisky era and gets Justin Fields. So I think Fields, honestly, he's got the talent, and it's a crime that he fell that far the way he did.
Yeah, falls to 11, and there's always that guy. There's that guy who falls every season. You watch the draft and you see it, and you're trying to figure out who it's going to be. I guess maybe you saw it coming. I'm not quite sure. I guess I wasn't sure how high people had Trey Lance on their draft board.
Right.
Whereas I guess maybe the surprise was Lance going before Fields, because you're talking about a North Dakota State guy going before, you know, the Ohio State guy
right.
who you watched. You know, you're talking about the guy you see on television every week.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that definitely caught a lot of people by surprise, because this is a guy in Lance who didn't really, I think he only had like 17 career starts or something like that. He only pretty much played one season. So I think for a lot of people, it was like, hold on, how can you take him over, Justin Fields? And it seemed like there was just all these knocks about his game, like he can't do this or his mechanics is wonky, X, Y, and Z. And sometimes sports, sometimes sports is so simple that you don't got to outsmart yourself. just take the smart thing and just do the right thing.
I hear you. All right. Well, look, man. Once again, it's always a pleasure to have Jovan Alford on the show. Always a pleasure. You got an open invitation. And, whenever you want to come on, come talk to us. If you ain't talking to like Sean Brace and all your friends over at the Gambler now. I'm like that. I'm hearing my man on the radio, and I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to have Jovan on the show
anymore. never that.
I'm sitting over here watching, like my man Sean Brace is like, hold up, man, how you? First, and the thing is, Sean Brace is my guy. That's my homie. How is he digging into our guest pool to come in here? Like that, you can't steal. How you gonna steal from us? We out here, grinding. We ain't got we ain't got a whole radio station, But he gonna take Jovan from, I'm happy for Jovan because he's getting that shine. Whole city gets to hear what I've known and what I've worked with now for 3-4 years. So I'm cool with it, but still, Sean Brace is supposed to be my homie, man. I don't know, man. But real quick before we go, let everyone know where they can hear you, where they can find you, where they can see your work, because you put out a good product, man, and people need to check that out.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so pretty much for like fantasy and like betting stuff, DKNation.DraftKings.com, pretty much for all that information and stuff. If you want to, read about, daily fantasy, DFS, betting, money line picks, prop plays, all that good stuff right there. And then just for anything else outside of that, Philly sports, totalsportslive.com, Total Sports Live podcast. We'll eventually get back up and running. A little on hiatus right now, but we'll get back up and running.
Hey man, you just be like me and Jonesy, man. First of all, this is like the first time in like a long time me and Jonesy did a podcast like 2 weeks in a row. That's the best thing about
because there's nothing really going on. Like really, like basketball season is like it's around, but it's not playoff time, so it's not like all right, we can talk about like this playoff series. And baseball is like,
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how many people want to sit down and listen to me and Jonesy, emphatically break down that 40-point win by the Sixers over the Hawks without Trae Young. That is what it is. But once again, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you, my friend.
No problem, y'all.
All right, and just a reminder to you guys, if you got something to say about anything that we say, hit us up. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at BITW Sports or at Jonesy and Brown. And make sure you download this podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Just search Best in the World Sports. That's Mike Jones. That's Jovan Alford. Hey, thank you guys for checking us out. We'll talk to you guys with a whole bevy of draft picks to either praise or just be angry about. That's what we do. Peace, y'all. Have a good weekend.
Peace.